DeRusso with the Hi, Gaye DeRusso with Majestic Rider. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about having good control of your horse and keeping yourself safe, as horses can be very dangerous since they're big and they're spooky and they can step on us if they don't respect the space around us. So I'm going to show you some things that you can do at home, and I'm going to show you the tools I use. So I usually use a rope halter. I can send you links on this if you want. It has knots on it, and it's a stiff halter. Not all rope halters are the same. The soft ones are not going to help you if you have a horse that has an issue that you need to correct, or it's going to take a very long time to do it. And I try to fix things fast as the horses are in training, so we're trying to get a lot of time into them with other things. So I use a rope halter, stiff, with knots on it. The knots put pressure points on the horse's nose, so when you pull and yank on it, they feel it a little bit more. It's kind of like a choke collar with a dog versus a nylon collar with a dog. Your point's going to get across faster because they can feel it and they're more sensitive to it. Once you teach them what to do, you can do it in anything, but this will just make it easier for you. So stiff halter. Next thing we're going to use is a rope, and we want the rope to be a little bit heavy, because when you have some weight to the rope, the horse can feel it better when you're wiggling it. If you're using a very light lead rope, they won't feel it the same, and you also will be closer to the horse. If I have a dangerous horse, which I've worked with many, I'd rather be farther away, because it gives me time to escape, time to think. It gives me time to try to keep the horse out of my space so I don't get hurt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this halter on the fence. So you can tie it to a fence, you can tie it to a chair, bar stool, whatever you want to do. And then with my ropes, I always make sure I have a clip on them. If your rope just hooks to the halter, it won't have the same effect. Again, you can do it, it just might make it harder. But if you have a heavy metal clip on it, then when you wiggle it, it'll hit under the horse's chin and help you to get control. So that's the equipment we're going to use in practice in a minute. When we're handling horses, it's hard because many of us are getting back into the horses and our children are gone, and so we want to treat the horses like children. And you can treat them like children in a certain way, but you definitely don't want to spoil them, and that's what most people do. Most people overfeed them, don't work them enough, don't expect enough out of them, and just keep giving to the horse. The horse actually wants a leader, someone they can trust, respect, someone they know if they get in trouble, they can look to them, and that person or horse is going to help them to get through it. The horse's highest priority is being safe, and that's what they're looking for. So if when you're with your horse, you're just always giving things to them, and they don't have to work for them, and they don't have to look to you, be respectful or stay out of your space, in time, it is the horse's nature to take over. And that's what they would do in a herd, is if there's weaker horses, they just push past them, kick them, intimidate them, whatever they have to do, so therefore they can take the other horse's food, they can take its space in the social order, and they can move up that ladder. The closer they are to the front of that herd, the safer they're going to be, because usually the predators pick horses off of the edges of the herd and the back of the herd. So being in the front or being in the middle is the safest place for the horse. So they will take advantage of that because their first instinct tells them to survive. And so that's what they're trying to do. So it's in the horse's nature that if you are weak, that it will take advantage of you and take over in time. Now, each horse is different. So some horses have more drive for that, and some horses are more laid back and they won't try to push you around as much. But with any horse, you still want to make sure that they behave and know the rules, because even if by accident they step on our foot and they're not trying to hurt us, they can break our foot. So what you're trying to create in the beginning is a bubble around you. And I keep that bubble around me 2 to 3 feet. And I will let that horse in my bubble if I invite it. And that means I pull the horse in. So if I was standing here and I had the horse out of my space, and I wanted to pet him, I could either walk into his space or I could pull him into mine. When they're on the lead, I don't just let the horse come up to me, okay, unless I ask them. If you just let them come up to your space, they'll do that all the time, and then when you go to get them out of your space, it's much more difficult. So it's better to train them to stay out of your space They can only come in if you invite them. Okay? When horses are standing right next to you, like they're standing like this next to you, it's in their nature to be social. So if they're standing very close to you, they're going to start nibbling and doing things to you. The mares will do it less than the geldings. The geldings are more playful. They like to nibble more than the mares, okay? And so, especially if you have a gelding, you want to make sure you keep it out of your space. If you're talking to somebody, you make sure that you can't reach that horse's head. If you can reach that horse's head, you need to back them up further. A mare, you still want to keep out of your space, because if she got mad or something, she could reach you and bite you. So you still want to keep them out of your space and only invite them in when you're paying attention and you're going to give them attention. But again, if they're just standing next to you, they're going to do things to distract you to get your attention back on them. And that just might be biting you or stepping on you by accident. So remember, we want to get the horse's respect. We want to be their leader, and we want to keep a really 2 to 3 feet safe bubble around our body. Okay? So what I do when I first get horses, when they first come here and they go in training, I switch all their halters to my rope halters. And then I use a lead that's long. Most leads are 6 foot long. This is 12 to 14 feet. So I have plenty of room if the horse starts rearing, kicking, or doing something like that. And the first thing I do is when I take them out of the stall is I back them out of my space, and I teach them that with the wiggle. I back them out of my space, so as soon as I take them out, they're aware that I am now in control. I am your leader. Okay? I don't want them right next to me. We did that in English many, many years ago. I did, and some people do it now. It is up to you, but in the beginning, I like to teach people to keep the horse back and out of your space. Once you have full control of the horse and it will do what you want, then you can let it walk wherever you want it to walk, as long as you choose where it is. Because if you just let the horse wander, they're going to walk next to you, in front of you, and then they're just going to leave. Okay? So I wiggle the rope, get them out of my space, and then I turn and I go to walk out. As I walk out, I'm constantly, since this is a new horse, paying attention and looking back and seeing where the horse is. I don't space out. I don't talk to anybody. I'm very aware of where the horse is, and I am. I keep stopping as I walk. I might walk 10 to 20 feet, and I stop. If the horse, and I can turn around and reach that horse, then it's too close in my space. I turn it around and I wiggle. Okay? I do that over and over again. Now, if the horse doesn't listen, some are very pushy or they've gotten away with things. What I do is I turn around and wiggle like this. If they don't move, I wiggle it harder, harder. If that doesn't work, I start going up and down really hard, okay, to get them out of the space. If that doesn't work, I take this rope, which has a little spanker on the end of it, and I will wing that at the horse, okay? If they still won't move out of my space, then I will hit them with it in the chest or in the knees, okay? Now, to do these things, if you're new with horses, you had them many years ago, or you're older and you're just weaker, you need to practice. Because if you practice with the horse and you fumble, they know you don't know what you're doing, and they know you're not a good leader, and they won't listen to you. And then some of them will really intimidate you and scare you, and they're doing that on purpose. So it's best to practice at home with your rope and your halter, so you get the skills and the muscle memory to do it. So you want to think, I asked the horse to back up. He didn't back up, so I'm going to wiggle it harder. So I make it go back and forth like that. Wiggle it harder. That's not working. I do it harder. That's not working. I go up and down. You start light, always, and then increase it so the horse understands she's going to ask me first, and if I don't do it when she asks me, she's going to do it harder and harder, and I'm not going to like that. So I'm just going to do it when she asks me. I'm going to back up. Now, again, each horse is different. The sensitive horses or spooky horses, you won't have to do it very hard at all. The dull horses, the stubborn, pushy horses, you're going to have to do it really, really hard in the beginning. So you really do need to practice, okay? So practice with that rope. Just walk, pretend you're walking around, turn. You can reach the horse, wiggle the rope. He's not listening, wiggle it harder. He's not listening, yank up and down as hard as you can. Don't hurt your shoulder. And if that doesn't work, start swinging this rope at his chest. If that doesn't work, take that spanker part and start whacking towards their chest or their knees, okay? I'm hitting the halter because it's low, but we're not hitting them in the face. We want to hit in the chest or down in the knees. Now, this makes a lot of noise, and it scares people, and they don't want to hit the horse hard, okay? You have to hit them hard enough that they respect you. If you just tap them like this, they will walk over the top of you because to them that's a weak horse. Okay? So you have to do it with enough force that they will back off. You are not going to hurt the horse with these things unless you're super strong, and most of us aren't, okay? So if you want to test it, you hit yourself, okay? Now that sounded a lot, didn't hurt at all. I didn't actually feel it. So let's do it again. You can hit yourself. You're going to get some bruises, but it'll make you feel better on knowing how hard to hit the horse. So hit it again. Now that was a little harder. That might leave a little mark on me, maybe not. Now I'm going to hit it even harder. Now that hurt a little bit, okay? And that, to me, that was a lot of strength that I just put into it. So, I'm, 100 or so pounds. We're hitting 1,000 pounds with it. So you need to hit them pretty hard. The only way to get good at it is to practice. You hit them in the chest, okay? Again, you're practicing with the fence. Hit them in the chest. That doesn't work. And you want to be able to, you don't want to just go this way, come back, do this way again. You got to go forward and then backhand. Forward and then backhand. Forward and then backhand. And you do it over and over again. Then you try to do it harder, okay? Because if your horse is very pushy or it's tried to attack you, you need to come back with some force. So you're going to hit it harder and then you're going to backhand it harder, backhand, okay? Now, people will see I'm beating a fence and they're like, you beat horses. I do not beat horses, okay? I'm putting pressure on to get them out of the space. This sounds a lot worse than it actually is, so that's why I told you to hit yourself with it so you can feel it and you can feel how hard you can hit the horse. To me, hitting a horse once and doing it a little firmly so they learn respect and have good ground manners and therefore get someone to buy them who takes good care of them for the rest of their life is worth me hitting them a couple of times to get them out of the space. To me, if I didn't train the horses well and teach them to be respectful and they walked all over people and became very pushy and then started to bite and kick people, somebody's going to put them down. To me, that's a failure because now the horse has gotten killed for being disrespectful. So sometimes you have to change your thinking. I know a lot of you don't want to be firm with the horses. You don't want to get after them. But in your mind, you have to think if he's disrespectful, just like a child, they're going to be bad. And especially if you have a young horse, you need to teach these things because the young ones are going to nip and test and do all these things just like children do. You got to teach them how to survive in society and how to be a good horse, just like you have to teach good children. Bad children don't do well in the world. They end up in prison and all these other bad things happen to them, okay? So, same thing with the horses. If you don't teach that horse to be respectable, it's sitting in your yard, you're just letting it do what it wants, it's going to become bad, and it's going to do bad things with all that energy it has. So teach them to stay out of your space, teach them to be respectful, be firm to get them out of your space when you need to, okay? If you can't, then hire a trainer, someone who can do it. Now, some people will say, well, I can do it with cookies, and I can do it with something else. If that works for you, that is totally fine, okay? That's just not how it works in the horse's world. In the horse's world, if they get into the stallion space or the head mare space or even just another horse's space and that horse doesn't want them to do it, that horse who doesn't want them in their space will turn around and bite them very hard, okay? Draw blood, rip their skin, big gouges like that. Or they will kick them. And they don't just go like, oh, like that, because the horse wouldn't respect them. So they turn around and as hard as they can, they go bam, like that. They kick them right in the chest or wherever it is. Those horses won't bother them again. So they did it once, and they did it hard. So that's what I try to imitate. I try to imitate what the horses show us and works for them. I do it once, and I do it hard. A lot of times I don't have to do it anymore after that. So if your horse is not listening and you've been doing this stuff, and you're like, I've done it 1,000 times, you're not doing it with enough force or strength behind it to gain that horse's respect. For them to respect you, there has to be a reason why. So if you're a good leader and you're strong, they will want to follow you. But if you're a weak leader and you don't give them any rules, you just let them do whatever you want, sure, they'll like you and they'll like the food, but they won't respect you. And the day something happens and you're in the way, they will just run over the top of you because that's how it is in the horse's world. If you don't get out of my way and I'm scared and I got to go, I'm just going over the top of you and they'll flatten you. So I don't like to see people get hurt, but I see a lot of very, very disrespectful horses. Okay? So practice with the fence, practice with your halter, practice different scenarios, and get good at just hitting the fence, okay? And again, you can practice hit yourself. It's better if you have chaps on, just so it's more like the horse's skin, so you feel what they feel like. Okay? But you have to practice these things. So I practice when I take the horse out that I'm immediately their leader. I take them out and I keep them out of my space the whole time, and I just walk them around. Okay? I walk them around, stop, get them out of my space. And then I practice backing them up with the rope, and a lot of times I'll ask them to back up, and I'll just keep backing them up and backing them up until they get to the end of the rope. I'll let them stand there like that, and then I will say, okay, and I'll pull them up to me, and then I'll pet them and stuff, and then I'll back them out again and make them stay back there. So they start to understand when she sets me back, I'm not supposed to touch, and I'm not supposed to wander off or do anything. I just stand here, and when she pulls me in, then I get scratches. So again, when you back them up, you don't let them back up and then put their head down and eat. That's not respectful. You make them back up. You make them keep their head up. And if you're like, well, how do I keep their head up? If they put their head down, you just go like this. Every time they put their head down, if you do this, they will figure out, when I put my head down, she hits me with that metal thing in my jaw, and I don't like that. I'll just keep my head up, and I'll just stand like this. And then they do. So I walk them around. That's all I do in the beginning, is make sure that they will stay out of my space. And then I start to do the groundwork where I'm moving their hindquarters and their shoulders and all of that. Then what I do is when I'm walking around, if something spooks that horse, I show them who is the spookier thing and who they should respect more. So say I'm walking my horse, and this is very important because horses spook all the time and they run over the top of people. If I'm walking my horse and that horse spooks and he shoots forward, I turn around as hard as I can. I do that, okay? If he's starting to come over the top of me, my little horse is stuck over there, then I will wave this towards their chest, okay? You try to be as big and scary as you can compared to the thing that's scaring them. You want to be scarier than the thing, the bike, the person, or whatever scared them, so they don't come over the top of you, okay? Then, once they stay out of my space, I turn them around. They want to get in on the video. I turn them around, let them see what it is, walk them by it a bunch of times, turn them towards the object, they can smell it, see it, and then we walk forward and move on, okay? But I never let them walk, spook, almost jump on me, and just keep walking like, oh, this is just a horse thing, don't worry about it. No, because they can kill you by doing that. So remember, you're walking, you keep an eye on them the whole time. In the beginning, keep checking how far, where they are, keep stopping, backing them up, and if they spook, you turn around, be as big as you can, get them out of your space, and then wave it, whatever you got to do, wave your arms in the air, look like you're crazy, but whatever you do, you try to get that horse back, and then, to be a good leader, you take them and show it, it's nothing to be afraid of, okay? So that's keeping them out of my space. I do that all the time, no matter if I have the reins and I don't have a rope. I use the reins. I keep halters on horses a lot of times under their bridles in case I need to do things like that. And I am always keeping them out of my space. The other thing you can do is when you have them in a cross tie or a tie up, is ask them lots of time. This is for horses that are disrespectful, to move over. And I will show you this with a horse, but I wanted to show you without it today so you can learn to practice. So what you want to do when you're doing things is you want to push the horse over. You push it, keep your fingers into it until it moves, then take them off. And push again, hold your fingers into it until he moves, then take your fingers off. If they won't move, use your thumb and kind of dig your thumb and move your thumb up and down. You want to make sure that when you push your horse over, it moves over. And then when you go to the other side, push it over. Even if you have enough room, practice pushing your horse back and forth. So they understand when you walk up and get in their space that they should move over. Okay? And then when you go on the other side and you're on this side, that they should move over and give you space. So that way it's helpful that they hopefully will never try to crush you or push you into a wall or anything like that. But they need to understand that pressure on their side means to move over sideways. Now, if you do that, and you do that a lot, and then you go to teach them the side pass, it's really not that hard, because they've already had the pressure pushing them back and forth, and you just got to convert it from the ground to up in the saddle. Okay? So you want to do lots of movement. Then what I do is walk them all around the barn, up to different things, walk them through the grass, don't let them eat the grass, walk them by other horses, by objects they want to touch, like blankets and things. But make sure your horse is paying attention to you the whole time. If they are focused on you, their ears are going to be forward and they're going to be looking at you. If as you're walking them, this is what you see, they're telling you they don't respect you at all. In fact, they're looking for another leader because you're not doing a very good job at all. So if you're walking them, come here, horsey, and they keep looking around, say he looks that direction. So I'm walking my horse, I can see him out of the corner of my eye, but I can keep looking back. Say he looks to the right, I'm going to pull him to the left. Say he looks to the left, I'm going to pull him to the right. And I'm just going to do that over and over again until he understands the easiest thing to do is just to keep his head straight and pay attention. Again, if he starts going towards the grass, I kind of have a rule that I don't let any horses put their heads below their knees unless I'm grazing them. Because if their head goes below their knees, that's the next thing that's going to happen. They're going to smell grass, and of course they get tempted and they want to eat it. So if they start to put their head down and it starts going towards their knees, I just yank it and yank their head back up. And when it's up, then I leave them alone. I just do it over and over again. But again, you got to be strong enough and with a little bit of force to help to get the message across. If you're doing something they really won't listen, then I start making it harder for them. So say I'm trying to get them not to eat the grass and they won't do it and I keep yanking their head up and that's not working. Well, then I just start backing them up in a circle. I'm like, come on, let's go. And I back them and I back them in like a 10-meter circle. And then I ask them to stand or walk again. If they do it again, then I do 3 circles. If they do it again, I'm doing 9 circles. I kind of triple things. So you make it harder pretty fast so they don't want to do those things again. But if you're too nice, you're unclear, you make things, instead of being what they call black and white, where it's a clear message to the horse, you make it gray, they never understand what's right or what's wrong. And so then it's not their fault they're doing the wrong thing. It's your fault for not being clear with them. And again, that's usually not putting enough force on the end of the rope. The nylon halters work fine when the horse understands and respects you. But when you're trying to teach it, it's harder because it doesn't help you, especially if you're weak. The horse really doesn't feel that pressure. So that's why the rope halters have been beneficial. If you don't have a rope halter or your horse is horrible, and this is what we used to do when we did a 100 jumper, we didn't have rope halters because I'm so old they didn't really make them. But whatever. So we had chains on our ropes instead. So this was hooked underneath the horse, okay? Now, you could make it short by hooking it like this and have the rope. But if the horse was bad, again, we'd wiggle, and this would hit him underneath it. And then some created this genius rope, which worked much better. But if that's not working and you need more force, you can take this, and this is hooked to the end of your rope, and you take it and you wrap it around the noseband, like that, and you hook it. Okay, then you can use this. You can pull this up and down, and then they'll feel that chain against their nose, and they won't like it so much. If they're horrible, your people are handling stallions, then a lot of people will put the chains under their lip, or they'll put it in their mouth like it's a bit. And people look at those things and they go, that's horrible. Who would do that to a horse? Well, the hard thing is, maybe that's a really aggressive horse. Maybe it tries to kill them every day. So they have to do something to protect themselves. And stallions are not like regular horses. Stallions can be very aggressive, and they do kill people all the time. And so you have to be safe, and you have to use things that give you enough control so you can keep yourself safe. Now, even though I told you all this and the equipment I use and why, again, some people will think, well, that's mean. Well, what I think is meaner is not giving them any good ground manners and not giving them things to deal with the world, and it makes them into bad horses, and then people just want to put them down because they're dangerous, and people don't want to buy them, and they don't want to put the time in, and sometimes those horses try to kill people. So I'm going to take out a horse tomorrow, and I don't know how feral it is, but I don't think it's going to have good ground manners. And I don't think it's going to know any of this stuff. And so we're going to try, and I'll show you what happens. But I might have to be pretty tough if that horse tries to come after me or bite me or kick me. Sometimes you got to be pretty aggressive. But it's just like a person coming after you. If they're trying to kill you and you don't fight back, well, guess what? They're going to kill you. So you do need to step it up and bring up some energy and some force. And again, if you can't do it, then you get someone else to help you. All right. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more why to keep horses out of your space, why to keep them paying attention to you and not just letting them graze and do what they want. You really have to be a good leader. And it's just like how people are with their kids. A good mother is nice to them when the kids are good. She rewards them when they do a great job. And she's tough with them when they're misbehaving and not listening. Because she's trying to teach them how to handle themselves in society so they can survive. But she has to be firm enough that they will listen. And if someone does this from the horse from a baby, it'll be pretty easy. You won't have to put much pressure on that horse at all because it already understands pressure and knows what to do. But if this horse has been stubborn, gotten away with stuff, stuck in a pasture, nobody has worked with it, then it can be pretty tough. And that's why some of the horses you're buying out there are cheaper because they have issues like that. But it's up to you now that you bought this horse to work with it and try to fix it. All right. Hope that helps.